He stepped out of his car slowly, gripping the doorframe for balance, his leg brace visible beneath his marine dress blue trousers. The Purple Heart insignia on his chest caught the late afternoon sun as he reached for his cane, the quad-tip kind that screamed medical necessity rather than fashion accessory. He'd just come from a memorial service for a fallen brother from his unit, still wearing his uniform because changing would have meant 15 minutes of struggling with pants that had to accommodate metal and plastic, keeping his shattered leg functional. He needed groceries. Simple task. In and out. Except the police officer sitting in the parking lot saw a young man in a handicapped space and decided something was wrong. Saw the uniform and the decorations and the cane and assumed it was all performance, stolen valor, someone faking disability for parking convenience. The officer approached with aggression that suggested guilt was already determined, demanded to see the disability placard, dismissed the veteran's explanation and credentials as fraudulent. When the Marine moved too slowly, because his leg literally wouldn't move faster, the officer took it as non-compliance. Within 8 minutes, a decorated combat veteran was handcuffed in a grocery store parking lot, while shoppers recorded and he quietly repeated his name, rank, and service number, begging them to verify through the VA. At the station, they took his medication, put him in a cell, charged him with disorderly conduct and impersonation. He made one phone call. "Sir, they arrested me. I'm in custody." Within 90 minutes, federal agents arrived. The station received calls from the DOJ, Department of Defense, and VA. Because the Marine in handcuffs wasn't just a disabled veteran, he was a federally protected witness in a defense contractor corruption case. His arrest triggered intervention protocols that would destroy the officer who had dismissed his injuries as fake and his service as lies. Thursday, November 9th, 2023, 5:47 p.m., Save Mart Grocery Store, Suburban Virginia. Staff Sergeant Michael Chen, USMC, retired, pulled his 2018 Honda Accord into the handicapped parking space closest to the entrance, placed his disability placard on the dashboard, and took a moment to prepare himself for the ordeal of getting out of the car. Getting out of a car shouldn't be an ordeal. For most people, it wasn't. But Michael wasn't most people anymore. He was 31 years old, though his body felt decades older. His left leg from the knee down was a reconstruction of titanium rods, surgical pins, and scar tissue held together by sheer determination and twice-weekly physical therapy. An IED in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, 3 years ago, had shattered the leg so badly that field surgeons had nearly amputated. They'd saved it, technically, but what remained was a limb that barely functioned, that caused constant pain, that required a custom leg brace and a cane just to manage basic mobility. He wore his Marine Corps dress blue uniform, the formal uniform he'd worn to the memorial service that afternoon for Lance Corporal David Martinez, a kid from his unit who died 2 years ago from complications of wounds received in the same attack that had destroyed Michael's leg. The service had been at Arlington National Cemetery, full honors, painful in ways that had nothing to do with Michael's physical injuries. The uniform fit differently now than it had during his active duty years. The trousers had been altered to accommodate his leg brace, a bulky affair of metal struts and plastic hinges that kept his knee stable and his ankle from collapsing. The jacket still fit his shoulders. He'd maintained his upper body strength through obsessive gym work, but the ribbons on his chest felt heavier than they used to. Top row, Purple Heart with 1 oak leaf cluster. Wounded twice in combat. Combat Action Ribbon. Navy and Marine Corps. Achievement Medal with Valor Device. Second row, Presidential Unit Citation. Good Conduct Medal. National Defense Service Medal. Afghanistan Campaign Medal with 2 campaign stars. Global War on Terrorism Service Medal. The ribbons told a story of 3 deployments, multiple combat operations, and a career cut short by an IED that had killed 2 Marines, wounded 4 others, and left Michael with a disability rating of 90% from the VA. He opened the car door and began the process of getting out, swinging his damaged leg out first, planting his cane on the pavement, using his right leg and both arms to lever himself upright. It took effort. It always took effort. On bad days, it took 3 or 4 attempts. Today was a medium day, which meant he got it on the second try. He stood, breathing slightly harder from the exertion, and locked his car. The Save Mart was a small suburban grocery store. Nothing fancy, but it had the essentials and was close to his apartment. He needed to pick up a few items, bread, eggs, something for dinner, before heading home to an evening of physical therapy exercises and the kind of quiet that filled apartments where only one person lived. Michael started walking toward the entrance, his gait unmistakably impaired. The leg brace forced a stiff-legged movement on his left side. The cane provided stability his leg couldn't, and each step was a conscious effort rather than the unconscious movement most people took for granted. He'd walked maybe 15 feet when a voice called out behind him. "Hey, stop right there!" Michael turned carefully. Sudden movements risked losing his balance, and saw a police officer approaching from a cruiser parked 3 spaces over. The officer was white, male, probably late 20s, with the build of someone who spent a lot of time in the gym and the attitude of someone who expected immediate compliance. His name tag read, Officer D. Parker. "Yes, officer?" Michael kept his voice calm and respectful. Years of military bearing automatically engaging. "Is that your vehicle?" Parker pointed at Michael's Honda. "Yes, sir." "You're parked in a handicapped space." "Yes, sir. I have a disability placard. It's displayed on my dashboard." Parker walked over to Michael's car and peered through the windshield, examining the placard. "This looks expired." "It's not expired, sir. It's valid through December 2024. The date is printed on the bottom right corner." Parker squinted at the placard, clearly annoyed that Michael was correct. "Whose name is on this?" "Mine, Michael Chen." "Let me see your ID." Michael carefully shifted his weight, leaned his cane against his hip, and pulled out his wallet. He removed his driver's license and his VA identification card, the one that clearly stated his disability rating and veteran status, and handed both to Parker. Parker examined them with a skeptical expression. "Says here you're disabled." "Yes, sir. I'm a disabled Marine Corps veteran. I was injured in Afghanistan 3 years ago. My left leg was severely damaged by an IED. I require the handicapped parking accommodation." "You don't look disabled." Michael felt a familiar anger rising but kept his voice level. "My disability isn't always visible when I'm standing still, but I have significant mobility impairment, chronic pain, and limited range of motion. I'm entitled to handicapped parking under the ADA and Virginia state law." "How old are you?" 31. "You're 31 and you need handicapped parking? Seems convenient." "It's not convenient. It's necessary." "Officer, I'm not sure what the issue is here. I have a valid disability placard, properly displayed, in my name. I have documentation of my disability from the Department of Veterans Affairs. I'm legally parked." Parker's eyes moved to Michael's uniform, taking in the ribbons. "You just come from some military thing?" "A memorial service at Arlington National Cemetery, sir." "For who?" "A Marine from my unit who died from wounds received in Afghanistan." Parker's expression suggested he didn't believe this. "You're wearing your uniform to go grocery shopping?" "I'm wearing my uniform because I attended a military funeral, and I'm stopping for groceries on my way home. Is there a problem with that?" "Stolen valor is a problem. Fake disability is a problem." Michael's jaw tightened. "Officer, I'm not stealing valor. I'm a retired staff sergeant, United States Marine Corps. I served 3 deployments to Afghanistan. I was medically retired after being wounded in combat. These ribbons and decorations are properly awarded and authorized." "Yeah? Show me your DD-214. The DD-214 was the official document showing military service and discharge status. Michael carried a copy in his car for exactly these situations. Veterans were often questioned about their service, particularly younger veterans whose age made civilians skeptical. "It's in my car, sir, in the glove box. I'd be happy to retrieve it if you'll allow me to access my vehicle." "Stay here, I'll get it." "Officer, that's my personal vehicle. I'd prefer to retrieve my own documents." "I'm not asking your preference. Give me your keys." This was getting out of hand, but Michael was tired, his leg was hurting, and he didn't have the energy for a prolonged confrontation. He handed over his keys. Parker unlocked the car, opened the glove box, and pulled out the folder where Michael kept his important documents. He flipped through them. DD-214, VA disability rating letter, medical documentation, while Michael stood waiting, leaning heavily on his cane, aware that other shoppers were starting to notice the interaction. Parker brought the documents back to Michael, but didn't return them. These could be fake. They're not fake. Officer Parker, you can verify my service record through the Department of Defense, through the VA, through the Marine Corps. I can give you contact numbers for verification. But these documents are genuine, and I'm legally entitled to be exactly where I am, doing exactly what I'm doing. Your attitude is problematic. My attitude? Michael couldn't help the incredulity in his voice. Sir, I've been respectful and cooperative. I've provided every document you've requested. I don't understand what else you want from me. I want you to stop lying about being disabled. I'm not lying. You walked over here just fine. You don't look like you need that cane. I have a leg brace that you can clearly see. I'm using a cane because without it, I fall down. My medical documentation shows extensive injuries that... Put your hands on the car. Michael stared at him. What? Hands on the car. Now. Officer, I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm a disabled veteran standing in a parking lot. You have no grounds to search me or my vehicle. Obstruction of justice, disorderly conduct, possible fraud. Put your hands on the car or I'll put them there for you. Michael's hands were shaking, with pain, with exhaustion, with rage at being treated like a criminal for the crime of being disabled and young. I'm not obstructing anything. I've cooperated fully. If you try to put your hands on me, you're going to hurt me. I have injuries that... Hands on the car! Final warning! Michael looked around. At least 6 people were watching now, some recording on their phones. The situation was spiraling out of control, and Michael couldn't figure out how to de-escalate when the officer seemed determined to escalate. He slowly, carefully, placed his hands on his car. The position immediately caused pain. His leg brace locked his knee, making it impossible to lean forward naturally, forcing him to compensate with his back and hips in ways that aggravated his other injuries. Parker began patting him down roughly, checking for weapons, treating him like a suspect. You got anything on you I should know about? Weapons? Drugs? No, sir. Just my wallet and my phone. What's in your pockets? My keys, which you just took, my wallet, my phone, and a pill bottle with my prescription pain medication. Parker pulled out the pill bottle and examined it. Oxycodone. This yours? Yes, sir. Prescribed by the VA for chronic pain related to my combat injuries. My name is on the label. It's prescribed by Dr. Sarah Rodriguez at the Richmond VA Medical Center. Everything is legal and proper. Or you bought it on the street and put it in an old prescription bottle. That's not what happened. You can verify the prescription through the VA pharmacy. You seem awfully defensive for someone who claims to have nothing to hide. Michael closed his eyes briefly, trying to maintain composure. Officer, I'm not defensive. I'm in pain from standing in this position. I'm confused about why you're treating me like a criminal. And I'm asking you to please verify my credentials through official channels before this gets worse. Turn around. Michael turned carefully, using his cane for balance. Parker pulled out his radio. Unit 47 to dispatch. I need backup at Save Mart, handicapped parking area. Subject claiming to be military, possible stolen valor, possible prescription drug fraud. Subject is being uncooperative. I haven't been uncooperative. Michael's voice rose despite his efforts to stay calm. I've answered every question. I've provided every document. I've stood here in pain while you've accused me of lying about service and disability. I can prove. And now you're yelling at a police officer. That's disorderly conduct. I'm not yelling. I'm frustrated that you won't listen. Turn around, hands behind your back. What? Why? You're under arrest for disorderly conduct, obstruction, and impersonation of military personnel. I'm not impersonating anyone. I'm a retired Marine. My documentation proves... Parker grabbed Michael's arm and pulled it behind his back. The sudden movement threw off Michael's balance. His damaged leg couldn't compensate, his cane fell to the ground, and he stumbled. Stop resisting, Parker shouted, even though Michael wasn't resisting, just trying not to fall. I'm not resisting. I'm disabled. You're making me fall. Michael managed to stay upright by grabbing the car with his free hand. Parker wrenched both arms behind Michael's back and applied handcuffs. Tight, too tight. The metal biting into wrists that were now bearing weight his injured body couldn't support properly. Michael couldn't stop the cry of pain. You're hurting me. I have injuries. Please. Should have thought about that before you decided to lie about being a Marine. I'm not lying, Michael's voice cracked. My name is Staff Sergeant Michael Chen, USMC, retired. Serial number, he rattled off his service number. I served with 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. I was wounded in Helmand Province on August 14th, 2020. Everything I've told you is verifiable. By now, at least 15 people had gathered, many recording on their phones. A woman in her 60s approached cautiously. Officer, I think you should check his story. He looks like he's really hurt. Ma'am, step back or you'll be arrested too. Within 5 minutes, 2 more police cruisers arrived. The backup officers seemed uncertain about the situation. Michael was clearly in a genuine military uniform, clearly had a real leg brace and mobility issues, clearly was in pain from the handcuffs. But they deferred to Parker's characterization of events. A sergeant emerged from one of the backup cruisers. Parker, what's going on? Sergeant Mills, I've got a subject claiming to be a disabled Marine veteran. He's parked in handicapped parking with what appears to be a fraudulent disability placard. He's wearing what looks like a military uniform with decorations I believe are fake. He's been uncooperative and disorderly. I'm arresting him for impersonation, fraud, and disorderly conduct. Sergeant Mills looked at Michael, handcuffed, struggling to stay upright without his cane, visibly in pain, wearing a uniform that looked completely legitimate. And something in his expression showed doubt. Son, what's your name? Staff Sergeant Michael Chen, United States Marine Corps, retired. Sir, I'm asking you to verify my credentials through the Department of Defense or the VA before this goes any further. Everything Officer Parker has accused me of is false. I'm a genuine disabled veteran. My documentation is real. I've been cooperative throughout this entire interaction. He's been argumentative and resistant, Parker interjected. I've been neither. I've answered every question. I provided every document requested. I stood in a position that causes me pain. The only thing I've done is ask for verification, which is my right. Mills looked at Parker. Did you try to verify his credentials? Sir, look at him. He's 30 years old, claiming to be a retired staff sergeant with a Purple Heart. Those decorations take years to earn. He's too young. It's fake. I'm 31, Michael corrected. I enlisted at 18. I was promoted to corporal in 3 years, sergeant in 5, and staff sergeant in 7. I was medically retired after my 3rd deployment. That's a completely normal career progression for Marines who deploy to combat zones. Everything I'm saying can be verified in under 5 minutes if someone would just make the call. Mills pulled out his phone. What number should I call? Michael felt relief flood through him. Finally, someone willing to verify instead of assume. The Marine Corps Manpower and Reserve Affairs number is... He rattled off a phone number from memory. Or you can call the Richmond, Virginia Medical Center and ask for the Records Department. Or you can call the DoD Personnel Database. Any of those will confirm my service and my disability status. Mills was about to dial when Parker interrupted. Sergeant, we can verify at the station. Right now, we have an arrestee who's been uncooperative, and we need to get him transported before this crowd gets bigger. Mills looked at the growing crowd of shoppers. Now, at least 20 people, most recording, some calling out support for Michael. Let him go. He's really a Marine. This is bullshit. Mills made a decision. Parker, transport him to the station. We'll verify everything there. Chen, we're going to sort this out properly, but we need to do it away from this crowd. Sergeant, please, just make the call now. Verify now. I'm asking you. We'll verify at the station. Parker, take him in. Parker grabbed Michael's arm and started pulling him toward the cruiser. Without his cane, with his hands cuffed behind his back, with his leg brace preventing normal movement, Michael lurched forward awkwardly, nearly falling twice. I can't walk like this. I need my cane. Please. Should have thought about that. Before you committed fraud. They reached the cruiser. Parker opened the back door and tried to push Michael inside, but Michael physically couldn't bend properly with the handcuffs and the leg brace. I can't. My leg won't. The brace doesn't. Stop making excuses and get in the car. Parker shoved harder. Michael cried out in pain as his injured leg twisted wrong, as the cuffs cut into his wrists, as his back spasmed from compensating for the awkward position. Finally, through a combination of Parker pushing and Michael struggling, he ended up in the back seat, his leg bent at an angle that sent shooting pains up his entire left side. The door slammed. The cruiser pulled out of the parking lot, driving away from Michael's car, his cane, his dignity, and the crowd of witnesses who had recorded a decorated disabled combat veteran being arrested for the crime of being too young to look as broken as he was. Continuing with parts 2, 3, and 4. 6:43 p.m. County. Police Department. Michael sat in a holding cell, hands still cuffed behind his back, because Parker had refused to remove them, claiming Michael was agitated and potentially violent. His leg was screaming in pain. The position in the police car had aggravated everything, and he'd now been standing or sitting awkwardly for nearly an hour without his medications or any way to adjust his brace. The booking process had been humiliating. They'd photographed him in his dress blues with handcuffs visible, taken his fingerprints, confiscated his wallet, phone, and, critically, his pill bottle of pain medication. "I need my medication," Michael had told the booking officer. "It's prescribed for chronic pain. I'm supposed to take it every 6 hours. We'll hold on to it. You'll get it back when you're released." "When will I be released? I haven't done anything wrong. I'm a disabled veteran being held on false charges." "That's for the sergeant to decide." Now, Michael sat on the concrete bench in the cell, trying to find a position that didn't make his leg worse, failing completely, and wondering how his simple grocery store stop had turned into this nightmare. The cell was small, maybe 8 by 10 feet, with cinder block walls painted institutional beige, a stainless steel toilet, and nothing else. The bench was too high for Michael to sit comfortably with his leg brace on, too low to stand from easily, and positioned in a way that made every movement painful. He'd been in the cell for 45 minutes when Sergeant Mills finally appeared. "Chen, I need to ask you some questions." "Sergeant, before you ask anything, I need you to know I'm in significant pain. I require medication for chronic pain related to combat injuries. The booking officer confiscated my prescribed medication. I need it back, and I need medical attention for my leg. We'll address that after we verify your story. Tell me about your military service." Michael took a breath and recited his service record. Enlisted in 2010, deployed to Afghanistan in 2012, 2014, and 2018. Promoted through the ranks. Wounded on August 14, 2020, by an IED in Helmand Province. 2 Marines killed in the attack, 4 wounded including himself. Medically retired in 2021 after multiple surgeries and rehabilitation that ultimately couldn't restore full function to his leg. "You have proof of all this?" "Yes, Sergeant. My DD-214 is in my car. Officer Parker took it. My VA records are accessible through the VA database. My service record is in the Marine Corps system. Everything I'm telling you can be verified in under 10 minutes. Mills reviewed the documents Parker had taken from Michael's car. "These look legitimate." "They are legitimate. Sergeant, I'm not a criminal. I'm a disabled veteran who stopped to buy groceries. Officer Parker decided I was faking my disability and faking my service without bothering to verify anything. Now I'm sitting in a cell in handcuffs when I should be home doing physical therapy exercises. Parker says you were uncooperative and disorderly. I was neither. I answered every question. I provided every document requested. I stood in uncomfortable positions that aggravated my injuries. The only thing I did was ask for verification before being arrested, which is a reasonable request when you're being falsely accused." Mills was quiet for a moment, clearly wrestling with a situation that was becoming more complicated. "I'm going to make some calls, verify your story." "Thank you, Sergeant. And please, I really need my pain medication. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for medication. I'm legally prescribed for documented injuries." "I'll see what I can do." Mills left. Michael sat in the cell for another 30 minutes, the pain in his leg intensifying to the point where he was starting to feel nauseous. He tried stretching, tried standing, tried sitting different ways. Nothing helped. The brace that normally provided stability was now contributing to the problem because he couldn't adjust it properly. At 7:38 p.m., Mills returned. "Chen, I've made some calls. Your DD-214 checks out. Your VA records confirm your disability rating and your injuries. You are who you say you are." Michael felt overwhelming relief. "So, I'm being released? We still need to address the disorderly conduct charge." "What disorderly conduct? I never raised my voice until Officer Parker accused me of lying about service and injuries I can prove. I never became physical or threatening. I complied with every order even when those orders caused me pain. Parker's report states you were argumentative, defensive, and raised your voice at him. Because he was calling me a liar and a fraud. Sergeant, you verified I'm a genuine disabled veteran. Everything I told Parker was true. He arrested me anyway. Now you're telling me you're going to keep me here on charges we both know are fabricated? Mills looked uncomfortable. I need to speak with my supervisor. Wait here. I'm handcuffed in a cell. Where else would I go? Mills left again. Michael dropped his head back against the cinder block wall and tried not to cry from pain and frustration. 20 minutes later, a lieutenant entered. Older man, probably late 40s, with the bearing of someone who'd been working patrol for decades and had seen everything. His name tag read, Lieutenant Rodriguez. Staff Sergeant Chen? Yes, sir. Rodriguez looked at Michael carefully. At the dress blues, at the ribbons, at the leg brace, at the way Michael was obviously struggling with pain. I've reviewed your case. Your credentials are verified. You're clearly a genuine disabled veteran, but we have a problem. What problem? Officer Parker's report characterizes you as uncooperative and disorderly. If I release you now, it looks like we're dismissing charges because you're military. That creates issues. Michael stared at him. So, you're going to keep me here on charges you know are false because releasing me would be politically inconvenient? I'm saying we need to handle this properly. You'll be held overnight. Tomorrow morning, you'll appear before a magistrate. The charges will likely be dropped at that point. Held overnight? Lieutenant, I need medical attention. I need my medication. I can't spend a night on a concrete bench with my leg like this. I'm asking for basic medical accommodation for documented disabilities. We'll have a medical officer check on you. When? Within the next few hours. I need help now. I understand you're uncomfortable. Uncomfortable? Michael's voice rose despite his efforts at control. Sir, I have titanium rods and surgical pins in my left leg. I have nerve damage that causes constant pain. I have a prescription for pain management that your officers confiscated. I've been in handcuffs for over 90 minutes in positions that aggravate my injuries. This isn't discomfort. This is genuine medical need. Rodriguez looked sympathetic, but unmoved. I'll have someone bring your medication, but you're staying overnight. I'd like to make my phone call. You'll get your call, but think carefully about who you contact and what you say. Rodriguez left. Michael sat in the cell, trembling with pain and rage and the dawning realization that this situation wasn't being resolved rationally. They knew he was legitimate. They knew the charges were false, and they were keeping him anyway to avoid embarrassment. At 8:15 p.m., a corrections officer finally brought Michael his pill bottle and a cup of water. Michael took his medication, double dose because he was overdue, and waited for it to kick in. At 8:45 p.m., the same officer returned. You get your phone call now. Come with me. Michael was led to a phone in the booking area, still handcuffed, still wearing his dress blues, still limping badly even with the medication starting to work. The officer finally removed the handcuffs. Michael rubbed his wrists, which showed clear red marks and some bruising. You have 5 minutes. Make it count. Michael picked up the phone with shaking hands and dialed from memory. The number was one he'd been given 4 months ago when he'd agreed to cooperate with a federal investigation. He'd been told to memorize it, told to use it only in emergencies, told that calling it would activate protocols he didn't fully understand. This qualified as an emergency. The phone rang 3 times. Federal Witness Protection, this is Marshal Rodriguez. Marshal, this is Michael Chen. Witness number. He rattled off his assigned identification number. I've been arrested by local police. I'm being held on false charges at the county police department. I need immediate assistance. There was a brief pause. What were you arrested for? Impersonation of military personnel and disorderly conduct. I was in my uniform at a grocery store. An officer decided my disability and my service were fake. He arrested me despite my providing valid credentials. I'm being held overnight despite them verifying I'm legitimate. Stand by. Michael waited. 30 seconds, 60 seconds. Marshal Rodriguez came back on the line. Chen, maintain your current position. Do not make any statements. Do not sign anything. Federal intervention is being activated. You should see response within 60 to 90 minutes. What kind of response? The kind that makes this situation someone else's problem. Stay calm. We're handling it. The call ended. Michael hung up the phone and looked at the corrections officer. "I need to speak with Lieutenant Rodriguez." "Why?" "Because in approximately 90 minutes, federal agents are going to show up here asking why a protected federal witness was arrested and held on false charges. He's going to want advance warning." The officer's expression shifted from annoyance to concern. "What are you talking about? I'm not just a disabled Marine veteran. I'm a witness in a federal corruption case. My arrest just triggered intervention protocols. I'm trying to give your department a heads up before this becomes a bigger problem." The officer left quickly. Michael was returned to his cell, and he waited for what came next. 9:28 p.m. County Police Department. Lieutenant Rodriguez was in his office reviewing paperwork when his desk phone rang. The caller ID showed a Washington, D.C. area code. "Lieutenant Rodriguez." "Lieutenant, this is Deputy U.S. Marshal Sarah Rodriguez. No relation. I'm calling regarding Michael Chen, currently in your custody." Rodriguez felt his stomach tighten. "Yes, we have a Michael Chen here. What's your interest?" "Mr. Chen is a federally protected witness in an ongoing investigation. His detention triggered automatic notification protocols. I need you to explain why he was arrested." "He was arrested for disorderly conduct following a parking lot confrontation where he allegedly impersonated military personnel." "Allegedly? Have you verified his credentials?" "Yes. He's confirmed to be a retired Marine Staff Sergeant with verified disability status. But the arresting officer's report characterizes him as uncooperative." "Let me be very clear, Lieutenant. Michael Chen is under federal protection. He's a witness in a Department of Defense corruption case involving defense contractors and local officials. His wrongful arrest by your department is now a federal matter." Rodriguez's hand tightened on the phone. "I wasn't aware of his federal status. You should have verified before detaining him. Mr. Chen requested multiple times that you verify his credentials through official channels. You chose not to. That failure is now your department's liability." "Marshal, we did verify his credentials. We confirmed he's a legitimate veteran. But we had reports of disorderly conduct from the officer who arrested him for impersonating a status he actually holds. Your officer's report is contradicted by multiple civilian witnesses who recorded the entire interaction. We've already obtained that footage. Mr. Chen was calm, cooperative, and repeatedly requested verification while being handcuffed and arrested for being exactly who he claimed to be." "I understand this looks bad. It doesn't look bad, Lieutenant. It is bad, and it's about to get worse. Within the next 30 minutes, a team from the Department of Justice is arriving at your station. They'll be taking custody of Mr. Chen. They'll also be collecting all evidence related to his arrest: body cam footage, dispatch recordings, arrest reports, witness statements. An internal investigation will be opened into how your department handled a federally protected witness." Rodriguez felt sweat forming on his forehead. "Marshal, if I'd known, if you'd verified when he asked, you would have known. But your officer made assumptions. You and your supervisors made assumptions. And now your entire department is facing federal scrutiny because you detained a disabled veteran on false charges despite multiple opportunities to verify his status." The call ended. Rodriguez immediately called his chief. This was above his pay grade. Within 20 minutes, 3 black SUVs pulled into the station parking lot. Federal agents emerged: Department of Justice, U.S. Marshals Service, and a representative from the Department of Defense. The lead agent, DOJ Special Agent Frank Martinez, entered the station and went directly to the front desk. "I'm here for Michael Chen. He's being released into federal custody immediately." The desk sergeant looked panicked. "I need to check with—" "You don't need to check with anyone. Mr. Chen is a federally protected witness. His detention here is unlawful. Bring him out now, or I start making arrests for obstruction of justice." Lieutenant Rodriguez appeared from his office. "Agent Martinez, I'm Lieutenant Rodriguez. I understand there's been a misunderstanding." "There's been no misunderstanding. Your officer arrested a federally protected witness on fabricated charges. Your department held him, despite verifying his credentials were legitimate. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a civil rights violation. We were going to release him in the morning. He should never have been detained in the first place. Where is he?" "In holding cell 3. Get him out. Now." Rodriguez nodded to a corrections officer, who unlocked the cell where Michael had been sitting for nearly 3 hours. Michael emerged, still in his dress blues, still limping, his face showing the strain of prolonged pain and stress. When he saw Agent Martinez, relief flooded his features. "Staff Sergeant Chen," Martinez said formally. "I'm Special Agent Martinez with DOJ. You're being released into federal custody. Are you injured? My leg is significantly aggravated from the arrest and the accommodations here. I need medical attention. We'll get you to a VA hospital immediately." Martinez turned to Rodriguez. "I need all documentation related to this arrest. Body cam footage from all officers involved. Dispatch recordings, arrest reports, witness statements, everything." "Agent Martinez, we can provide that through normal channels." "No, you'll provide it right now, or I'll get a federal warrant and seize your entire evidence room. Your choice." Rodriguez looked at his chief, who'd just arrived and was standing in the doorway, looking like a man watching his career end in real time. The chief nodded. "Give him everything." For the next 40 minutes, the department's IT staff burned copies of body cam footage, printed reports, and assembled evidence while Michael sat in the lobby with federal agents, finally feeling safe for the first time in hours. Agent Martinez sat beside him. "Staff Sergeant, I need to ask, were you mistreated during your detention?" "I was handcuffed too tightly for too long, causing pain and bruising. I was denied medical accommodation for my documented disability. My prescribed pain medication was confiscated for nearly 3 hours. I was held in a cell with inadequate facilities for someone with my mobility limitations. And all of this happened after they verified I was exactly who I claimed to be." Martinez made notes. "Did anyone strike you or use excessive physical force?" "Officer Parker shoved me into his car roughly despite knowing about my leg injuries. But no, I wasn't beaten." "That's something, at least." Martinez looked at the police officers moving nervously around the station. "This department is in serious trouble, Staff Sergeant. What happened to you tonight violated multiple federal laws. Your status as a protected witness makes it even worse. The U.S. Attorney is going to review this case personally." "I don't want revenge," Michael said quietly. "I just want to go home." "I understand, but this isn't about revenge. It's about accountability. When police violate the rights of veterans and federal witnesses, there have to be consequences." At 10:47 p.m., the evidence collection was complete. Michael was escorted to one of the federal SUVs driven to the Richmond, Virginia Medical Center and examined by doctors who documented the aggravation of his injuries, the bruising from the handcuffs, and the hours of inadequate pain management. Only after medical clearance was he finally allowed to go home, not to his apartment, but to a temporary safe house where the U.S. Marshals could monitor his security while the investigation proceeded. Michael collapsed into bed at 2:30 a.m., exhausted in pain, and trying to process how buying groceries had turned into a federal case. Part 4. The Reckoning, 8 weeks later. Officer Derek Parker sat in a federal courtroom facing charges that would determine whether he spent the next 20 years in prison or the next 30. The indictment was detailed. Count 1. Deprivation of rights under color of law, 18 U.S.C. Section 242. Defendant did willfully deprive Michael Chen of his constitutional rights by detaining him without probable cause, subjecting him to unlawful arrest, and denying him reasonable accommodation for documented disabilities. Count 2. Violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Defendant did discriminate against Michael Chen on the basis of disability by refusing to provide reasonable accommodations and by treating his legitimate disability aids as evidence of fraud. Count 3. False arrest. Defendant did arrest Michael Chen on charges of impersonation and disorderly conduct, despite having access to documentation proving these charges were baseless. Count 4. Obstruction of federal witness. Protection defendant did unlawfully detain a federally protected witness, interfering with his participation in an ongoing federal investigation. Count 5. Filing. A false report defendant did submit reports containing materially false statements about Michael Chen's behavior, cooperation, and conduct. The prosecution's case was devastating. They had body cam footage from Parker showing the entire encounter. Michael's calm responses, his repeated requests for verification, his obvious physical disability, his compliance despite pain. They had footage from 6 civilian witnesses showing Michael being handcuffed, struggling with mobility, crying out in pain. They had dispatch recordings where Parker called Michael uncooperative when the video showed the opposite. They had Parker's arrest report describing Michael as aggressive and resistant when witnesses and video proved he'd been neither. They had medical documentation showing Michael's injuries had been aggravated by the arrest. They had testimony from VA doctors about the chronic pain Michael endured and the medication he'd been denied for 3 hours. And they had Michael. Staff. Sergeant Michael Chen took the stand in civilian clothes, button-down shirt, slacks, his leg brace visible, his cane beside the witness box. He walked slowly to the stand, was sworn in, and answered questions with military precision. Staff Sergeant Chen, please describe what happened on November 9th. Michael recounted the entire incident. Parking legally in a handicapped space, being confronted by Parker, providing all requested documentation, repeatedly asking for verification, being arrested despite compliance, being held despite verification of his credentials. At any point did you become aggressive or threatening? No, sir. I remained calm and respectful throughout. I answered every question. I provided every document requested. I complied with every lawful order even when those orders caused me pain. Why didn't you resist when Officer Parker arrested you? Because I'm a disabled veteran with limited mobility. Resisting would have resulted in me being injured more severely. And because I believed, incorrectly, that once they verified my credentials at the station, I'd be released. What happened at the station? They verified my credentials, confirmed I was a legitimate disabled Marine veteran, and held me anyway on false charges of disorderly conduct. The prosecutor showed the jury Michael's medical records, pages of documentation showing the extent of his injuries, the surgeries, the ongoing pain management, the disability rating from the VA. Staff Sergeant, Officer Parker accused you of faking your disability. Does this documentation look fake? No, sir. Are these injuries fake? No, sir. I wish they were. The defense tried to argue Parker had acted in good faith, that disability fraud was a real problem, that he couldn't have known Michael was legitimate. The prosecution destroyed that argument. He was given a disability placard with Michael Chen's name. He was given a VAID card with disability documentation. He was given a DD-214 showing honorable service and medical retirement. He was shown a leg brace that was visibly real medical equipment. He watched Mr. Chen struggle with mobility using a cane. At what point was there reasonable doubt about legitimacy? Parker's training emphasized stolen valor, and also emphasized verification procedures Parker never followed despite multiple requests. He arrested first and planned to verify later. That's not good faith. That's prejudice. The trial lasted 6 days. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Parker was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison, 7 years for the civil rights violation, 5 years each for the ADA violation and false arrest, 3 years for obstruction of witness protection, and 2 years for filing false reports, with some sentences running concurrently. He would serve a minimum of 15 years. His law enforcement certification was revoked. He would never carry a badge again. The department settled a civil lawsuit with Michael for $2.3 million and agreed to mandatory training on disability rights and veteran status verification. Lieutenant Rodriguez and Sergeant Mills were disciplined but not criminally charged. They'd made mistakes but hadn't acted with the same malice as Parker. Michael attended the sentencing but didn't make a victim impact statement. He just sat quietly in the gallery while the judge explained that officers who abuse their authority against disabled veterans destroy the public trust and deserve the harshest penalties. Afterward, Michael walked out of the courthouse slowly, using his cane, heading toward a life that would always include pain and limitations, but that no longer included fear that a simple grocery store trip could end in handcuffs. He'd done his duty as a Marine. He'd survived combat. He'd cooperated with federal investigators, and he'd watched the system, slowly, imperfectly, deliver justice to an officer who'd treated a decorated disabled veteran like a criminal for having the audacity to be disabled and young at the same time. It was enough. The moral. He stepped out of his car wearing his Marine dress blues and using a cane because he'd just attended a memorial service and his shattered leg required mobility aids. The Purple Heart on his chest represented real combat wounds. The leg brace beneath his trousers was medical equipment, not costume. He was 31 years old, medically retired, parked legally in handicapped parking with valid documentation. A cop saw him and decided it was all fake, decided a young man couldn't possibly be genuinely disabled, couldn't possibly have earned those ribbons, must be committing stolen valor. The cop demanded ID, dismissed valid credentials, refused verification, and arrested a decorated Marine for being exactly who he claimed to be. At the station, they verified his service, confirmed his disability, and held him anyway on fabricated charges of disorderly conduct. He made one phone call. "Sir, they arrested me." Within 90 minutes, federal agents arrived. Because the disabled Marine wasn't just a veteran, he was a protected federal witness. His arrest triggered intervention protocols that brought DOJ agents, U.S. Marshals, and DOD representatives who seized evidence and opened investigations. The cop faced federal charges, civil rights violations, ADA violations, false arrest, obstruction of witness protection, 22 years in federal prison, career destroyed, freedom gone, all because he'd assumed rather than verified, escalated rather than accommodated, treated genuine service and disability with contempt. The Marine returned to his painful life quietly, but the message was clear. Veterans and federal witnesses are protected, and the price for abusing that protection isn't just career ending, it's freedom destroying.